What's up guys, you're watching the timeline of Phoenix Suns channel, and after a bit of a break we have finally arrived at video number 6 in our free agent scouting series. My name is Sam, and today the focus is on, in my opinion, one of the most unappreciated veterans in the NBA. Here's an in-depth look at Magic point guard DJ Augustin. Right off the bat, the funny thing about us covering Augustin compared to some of the other names in this series is that, unlike with those younger guys, you might expect most people to have some preconceived notions about Augustin already. After all, he's been in the league since 2008 and has played close to 900 games. And yet, he's just about the most unremarkable point guard you could possibly think of. In our case today, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's true that Augustin has never played at anything close to an all-star level in his career, but now just a couple weeks away from turning 33, he continues to be an incredibly competent, steady floor general who understands how to run an offense, and to this point, he's shown few signs of slowing down. The main value that Augustin provides is through his pick-and-roll prowess in general. That means both playmaking and scoring, though he is a pass-first guy, so we're going to start there. Standing at just 5'11", there are so many aspects of Augustin's NBA life that are made difficult by his size, but one advantage that comes with the lower center of gravity is that Augustin is able to keep an incredibly tight dribble and weave through defenders in a way that few point guards can. He's earned a reputation of being unpluckable, and we saw that again this season with 4.6 assists per game to just 1.5 turnovers, a very good ratio of 3.1 even by point guard standards. Augustin makes stuff like this look really easy, but his poise is not something commonly found in just any NBA guard. He's remarkable at not cracking under pressure, and he shows that off in a number of ways. He's mastered the ability, for example, to keep a defender on his hip, not necessarily so that he can barrel to the rim for his own bucket, but so that he can create for rolling bigs instead. On the baseline, he makes sure to keep his dribble alive, just as Steve Nash used to be famous for doing, patrolling with a tight dribble until he can find an open cutter or shooter. He's also great at playing with stretch bigs, as he's perfected a behind-the-back shovel pass that he can whip out with either hand. Bigs like Vucevic and Mo Bamba were huge beneficiaries of this, with Augustin drawing in the defense before kicking out. But Augustin's playmaking numbers wouldn't be so good if he wasn't also at least a capable scorer. And while he's not going to score 20 plus points often, Augustin's pick and roll scoring this season was in the 73rd percentile in efficiency, and he gets those buckets in a number of ways. The most efficient way is through his pull-up shooting. Augustin can either pull up or step back into threes these days, and while he's not a fantastic shooter, he gives defenses reason to not go under a screen. You can definitely see some of the savviness here as he pulls out the same move to get 4-point plays on both Javon Carter and Mike Conley in 2 separate games. Through 4 seasons with the Magic, Augustin is knocking down 35% of his pull-up threes, making him a solid contributor of instant offense. When he does drive inside, he routinely makes use of his reliable floater in the short mid-range area. Augustin's height is a major hindrance to his ability to get to the rim, so he's a trusty, almost cartoonishly high floater that he'll fire over the top of bigs instead. And while this isn't traditionally the most efficient form of offense per se, you'd much rather he use a floater than a regular layup that just gets blocked. Speaking of which, it should be said that Augustin's finishing numbers are not good. This is the one clear downside to his offensive game, but again, it shouldn't be surprising given that he's just 5'11". He shot just 49.2% on shots inside of 5 feet, putting him in the same vicinity as guards like Ricky Rubio and Fred VanVleet, who are not known primarily as finishers. Luckily, his shooting mostly makes up for any struggles at the rim, and it's also important to note that while Augustin is a very natural point guard, he is capable of playing off the ball to some extent. That doesn't mean he's running around screens exactly, but over his years with the Magic, he's been ridiculously efficient in limited reps as a spot-up shooter. In the past 2 seasons, in fact, he actually ranked in the 99th percentile as a spot-up shooter. This year, that number fell to a still very elite 80th percentile. So, for example, if you're running a lineup with Augustin and Booker, then make no mistake about it. While you do usually want DJ running that offense, he's more than capable of spacing the floor on the wing. Before quickly transitioning to defense, there's one more important consideration when thinking about what Augustin brings to your offense. That's the fact that he's not a fast point guard. For the past 2 years, the Magic have ranked near the bottom of the league in pace. Augustin this year, according to the NBA's website, had the most dribbles per touch of anyone in the entire league. and he also doesn't excel as a transition scorer, where he ranks just 26th percentile in efficiency. All of this is to say that while DJ is incredibly competent as a half-court floor general, transition offense is important too. And specifically, a lot of young teams rely on their athleticism to punish opposing defenses in the open floor. While I'm sure Augustin could make the switch to playing in a faster system, there is potential that he looks a little bit awkward in doing so if he goes to a team that routinely plays at a much faster pace. This is just something small to keep in mind. With regard to defense, Augustin faces some pretty serious challenges. It's something surprising, but he just doesn't have the physical tools to be a good individual defender. Not only is he 5'11", but at his listed weight of 183 pounds, Augustin would become the Suns' lightest point guard. That combination of not having great length, not having exceptional burst, and not having the strength to fight over screens leaves him incredibly vulnerable on defense. We covered Justin Holiday a few videos ago, a player who is just as light as Augustin, but who can recover once knocked off position, and occasionally block a shot or at least contest from behind. Augustin doesn't have that ability. He blocked a total of 1 shot all season long, so the simple fact of the matter is that the second unit big man playing alongside him is going to take on a much bigger defensive workload. You can see how vulnerable he is in a clip like this against TJ McConnell. Augustin is working very hard to maintain a solid defensive stance, and he even rejects multiple drive attempts from the right-handed McConnell. But as soon as the big comes over, Augustin is taken out of the play and rendered useless as a trailer. Now, on the other hand, I think Augustin's team defense can actually be quite solid given his limitations. He has a sharp sense of awareness when it comes to rotations, so even if he doesn't have the wingspan to gamble for steals, you can be sure that he will at least stay in the play. Additionally, he uses some clever tricks to draw offensive fouls, whether it be through getting hooked or formally taking a charge. I wouldn't exactly call Augustin a flopper, but I think it is fair to say he knows how to take advantage of the rulebook, and that definitely counts for something come playoff time. Ultimately, Augustin is a bit physically limited, but it's his intellect that has kept him in the league for over a decade already, and I don't believe that that's going anywhere. Few teams in the league have cap space right now, but I'd expect a lot of playoff teams in need of a steady backup to gleefully throw their mid-level exception at a guy like Augustin. Here's what my partner Mike V. Hill thinks of his fit with the Suns.
I've struggled when thinking about Augustin this offseason. Part of me thinks he's an obvious good move and has relatively no downside if you can get him on a short deal at relatively low money. The other part of me looks at the starting point guard position for the Suns and am reminded that the Suns' long-term solution is still not quite obvious. There are a few ways the Suns can improve this offseason, and some of them are far-fetched, like trading for an all-star or superstar or signing a big-name free agent. Some are more realistic, like valuing the continuity of players and attempting to improve the bench. Augustin falls into the second category here. He's not going to turn heads, and his defense isn't great, but a steady hand, capable of running the show with smart play and experience, could make a massive difference on a Suns team whose bench needs an upgrade at every position. If the Suns choose the option of continuity plus bench upgrades, Augustin is a great option. But that long-term point guard of the future, that will continue to be a question going forward.
And that's all for us today, folks. Please let me know if you found this video useful, if you learned something about DJ Augustin, and if you want him on your team. Please subscribe to our channel and check out the rest of our scouting series if you haven't already gotten around to it. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.